And hello, I'm Dan DeRose with 19 News from our digital desk here at Cleveland 19. We have a new rendering to take a look at. It's yet again the next step in the Browns stadium saga. Will it be downtown or will it be Brook Park? And if it is Brook Park, we're getting what we think is our first look of what it could look like. Let's keep in mind renderings change all the time, but you're looking at a rendering that's been leaked. Today, you see that big structure in the middle is the Dome Stadium. You might notice that it doesn't look very tall. You have to keep in mind Cleveland Hopkins Airport is just on the other side of those fireworks. So the idea is that if you dig it down into the ground, there may not be such a problem with the FAA. Other things to notice about this rendering, look at all the fairly large buildings that surround both on the left and the right side of the screen. Those appear to be mixed use. Those could be office, residential, they could be entertainment, restaurants, bars. You could have an entire complex. I've been saying it for quite a while. Think about putting a stadium in the middle of Crocker Park kind of idea. And that's what you get with that rendering. One more thing I do want to point out is if this is a giant chess match, a very expensive chess match between the city, the Haslams, the state, who's going to have to put up some money. Notice the Cleveland skyline just in the upper right-hand corner, sort of like a, hey, city of Cleveland, take notice. I thought that was an interesting addition to that rendering. We're going to bring in from 92.3 The Fan, Anthony Lima. He is one of the first to get a look at this rendering. Mr. Lima, how are you today? Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, very exciting time in Cleveland. This is something I think fans are going to be talking about for a very, very long time.
You got your hands on this rendering and have put it out there. Give me your first overall reaction. Everybody has a reaction when you look at something like this. What was your first reaction? Were you impressed, not impressed?
When I had first talked to somebody who had seen the renderings after the Browns, their lobbyists had pitched this to lawmakers down in Columbus, I was told SoFi Stadium, which is in Los Angeles, on steroids. I think after I had said that on the radio and then people saw the rendering that I was able to obtain a copy of, I think some people were underwhelmed. You love social media has a bunch of people who parachute into whatever the topic is and become experts in that topic. In this case, now architecture, industrial engineers, and site excavators. They tend to be the experts on all of these things all at once, along with ingress and egress, which we love to talk about, because how are people actually going to get there? So I think people were a little underwhelmed, or they also think that doesn't really represent the city of Cleveland, but it is very modern. And if you've been to Minnesota, if you've had a chance to see SoFi, and I've talked to many people who have been to both those locations, they say this pretty much hits the mark.
It's interesting to say the least. It does not look like a football stadium, as you said. It looks very modern. And let's keep in mind, I spoke with Representative Sweeney, Representative Bride Rose Sweeney. She was in that pitch last Wednesday. It was a week ago today down in Columbus. And it's because, hey, there's going to need to be state money to help fund this, whether it's downtown, whether it's Brook Park. She recognized that. And the one thing she did, and I asked her for opinion, which do you like better, the downtown project, which was pitched to lawmakers 2 weeks ago, or the Brook Park? And she very thoughtfully said, I'm not going to say one way or the other just yet. She wanted to hear from Browns fans and what they thought, because this is taxpayer money. But she made the mention of how much more space there is in Brook Park compared to the downtown project. You are pretty locked in downtown. When you see the scope of this project, the buildings that are around it, does this look feasible to you, even though, yes, we're not architects, we're not zoning experts? As we get your shot to come back up, we'll get you in just a second. Give me your initial, that's cool, man. Give me your initial, does it look feasible?
It does. It absolutely has the amount of land that would be needed. Obviously, they're going to have to work with ODOT, the state, the county, the city, on making sure that you can get people there to and from, and then making sure that also doesn't compound what the commute would be to getting to to Hopkins, because obviously that's going to be a big deal too. Sundays, imagine if you have a flight that could be very problematic. But I think overall, it does, given the guardrails that I think you'd have for a project in this scope. Yeah, I do think it's feasible. And again, it's important. You astutely said, Dan, that you saw downtown. You saw downtown in a distance. This would be 10 minutes, 8 miles from downtown Cleveland, a lot closer than the situation at Gillette Stadium. Foxborough's about 45 minutes away from Boston. Scottsdale and Glendale. Everybody stays in Scottsdale or in the Phoenix area, but they commute to Glendale for the big events. That can be 40 minutes, depending on where you are. Obviously, in Dallas, same thing. Could be 25, 30 minutes from Dallas proper to get to Arlington. So this would actually be closer than a lot of those venues that have popped up, as obviously owners want to take full command over the properties that they would own. They would make money off the parking. They would make money off having all sorts of tenants, and they'd be the landlord to a bunch of restaurants, mixed-use facility, people living there, hotels, et cetera.
And I've said this on air a couple of times, and I think what this chess match is we've seen the city of Cleveland, who wants to develop around the current Brown Stadium. Well, the city of Cleveland, what do you know about developing and buildings and restaurants? And so it makes me wonder if the Haslams, who are very astute business people, if they went to the city of Cleveland and said, hey, yeah, let's renovate the current stadium, but we want the land, whether they have to buy it or ask for it. We want the land around the stadium so that we can develop it. And it doesn't look like the city wants to do that. The city wants to develop it on their own. And so you get this idea of, okay, fine. Just like you said, we'll go out to Brook Park and do this. Long gone are the days of, oh, if you're Cleveland, you better be in downtown Cleveland. As you just pointed out, a lot of the stadiums, modern stadiums being built, are nowhere near their downtown. So you can almost, as a Browns fan, flush that completely out, that there seems to be this need to 100% be in downtown. Lima, we're going to give you the final word here. What are you hearing from fans? What do you want fans to think of when they see this rendering?
We have seen a dramatic sea change in fans' opinions over the last decade. Since we launched our radio station, this was a blue-collar city where football needed to be played in the elements. I have heard from season ticket holders who said, you know what? We've experienced the elements over the last decade. We've had some of the worst football weather in the entire NFL. I think only Buffalo may have had it worse, and fans have had enough. Fans want to be taken care of. Now, do they want to foot the bill on this? It's going to be very interesting to see how creative the Browns and obviously the state is in finding a way to make this feasible. Are we talking hotel taxes? Are we talking low interest loan that would be paid back to the city, a loan they couldn't get anywhere else? This is going to be where it gets the most important, where the issues really get cemented. How can they get creative funding for a project like this? Because if you're just going to go to the taxpayers and say, fund this brand new lavish convention center / stadium mixed use facility that's like Crocker or Easton down in Columbus, well, I think fans will say, hey, I was willing to go along with this, not if we have to pay the freight on this. The Haslams have to step up in a big way.
Yeah, and it looks like the price tag, and there is no official price tag on anything anywhere, but it's going to be anywhere from the downtown project right around 1.5 or something like this out in Brook Park that could come with a price tag of $3 billion. We're not talking millions here. We're talking $3 billion. Anthony Lima from 92.3 The Fan, nice work on getting this rendering. We appreciate your time here, and we'll hear you on the radio. Thanks for joining us, brother.
All right, great to be with you, Dan.
All right, take care. We're going to wrap this up. I've got to run to the noon broadcast and show the rest of Cleveland this new rendering. Again, the debate continues and the conversation continues. Remember, the lease runs out in 2028, so a decision has to be made here fairly soon about a new building, which could take 2 to 3 years. You see why this window is starting to close now. If we have any other breaking news, it'll be here on our digital platforms. Otherwise, I'm Dan DeRose with 19 News. We'll see you at noon.